Most marketing starts too late, and quite often it begins with the wrong question. By the time a business turns to marketing, the assumption is usually already in place. The product exists, the service is defined, the offer has been built. Time and money have been spent. Internal belief is usually very high, so the conversation usually starts with, how do we position this? How do we create demand? How do we sharpen the message? And importantly, how do we get people to care? Now, they're familiar questions and very reasonable ones, but they rely on something that often goes untested. Is this actually worth caring about? And that's the harder question. And it usually arrives too late, if it arrives at all. It can feel awkward in a commercial setting because it sounds as though you're challenging the very thing the business is trying to sell. Founders care deeply about what they've built. Leadership teams are emotionally and financially invested in it. Internal belief is often very, very strong. But belief inside a business is not the same as relevance outside it. And the market is under no obligation to reward effort, enthusiasm, or proximity. That is why the question matters. Now, good marketing depends on identifying genuine value and making it clear to the people who might benefit from it. That's a very different job from trying to inflate the importance of something that has not yet earned attention. Now, a great way of describing this comes from Mark Ritson teachings, where he describes marketing as a river system. At the headwaters sit the decisions that shape everything else: market orientation, research, segmentation, targeting, positioning, and product market fit. Further downstream come brand, pricing, and route to market. Much later, near the beach, come the things many people casually call marketing: content, campaigns, social media, ads, and communications. Now, this is a helpful metaphor because the part many people recognize as marketing tends to sit at the beach, even though the most consequential work happens much further upstream. By that point, the product is already there. The service model is already there. The assumptions are already in place. The job handed to marketing is to get it moving, to build traction, to drive leads, to create interest, and to help the market understand what the business now needs to sell. That's often the reality of the work, especially in consulting and fractional roles. You're rarely invited in right at the source. More often, you step into a business that's already moving, trying to make sense of what is there. Sometimes that's where marketing does its best work. Now, a business can have real value and still do a poor job of expressing it. Founders and leadership teams are often too close to their offer to see it clearly from the outside. They focus on features that matter internally, but not commercially. They describe the mechanics of what they do rather than the change they create for the customer. They know their own product too well, and because of that, struggle to explain why anyone else should care. In those situations, marketing performs a genuinely useful function. It uncovers the truth of the proposition. It identifies what matters to the audience rather than what matters most to the business. It translates capability into relevance. The work is about finding the point at which the offer improves something for someone else and making that easy to understand. That's the version of marketing I find most worthwhile. It respects the audience enough not to drown them in noise, and it respects the business enough to look for a real source of value rather than defaulting to company hype. Now, it's important to think about the difference between revealing value and stretching it. So sometimes the issue is not communication at all. It sits further upstream. The market has not been properly understood. The customer has been defined too loosely. The offer solves a problem, but not one people feel strongly enough to act on. Or the proposition is technically different without being meaningfully different. In those moments, marketing starts to feel less like translation and more like compensation. And that's where kind of discomfort comes in. Most experienced marketers can feel the difference between revealing value and stretching it. One has a firmness to it, the other has strain. And while the line between them is not always neat, it is there. If the underlying offer is weak, vague, or insufficiently relevant, no amount of downstream activity will fully solve the problem. You can improve the language, you can sharpen the framing, you can create better campaigns than the business had before, but you're still working against the current. Now, I work as an FCMO for a lot of my clients, and this is where the work becomes especially interesting. In theory, marketing should be involved much earlier. It should have a voice nearer the headwaters, where questions of market fit, relevance, and customer value are still open enough to shape. In practice, that's rarely how it works. More often, I'm brought in once the offer already exists and the river is already flowing. And at that point, the task is to work out what is true, what is genuinely valuable here, what matters to the customer, what is differentiation, and what is internal mythology, what deserves emphasis, and what is simply noise the business has grown attached to. Sometimes that process is deeply satisfying. A business may have real value but no clear language for it. The job then is to uncover the commercial truth of the offer and express it plainly. In my experience, that's where marketing does some of its very best work. But there are moments when the tension is harder to ignore. You realize the issue is not really the message, it's the offer itself, or the way it's been shaped, or the assumptions that were never challenged early enough. And when that happens, marketing can start to feel uncomfortable. You're no longer clarifying value, you're being asked to compensate for the absence of it, or at least for the lack of a clearly defined version of it. That's the line I keep coming back to. The best marketing work I know is grounded in something solid. It sharpens, translates, and amplifies. It gives shape to value that is already there, already existing. And it helps the right people recognize why something matters. The weaker version asks marketing to do too much downstream, to decorate uncertainty, to create weight around something that's not yet earned enough of it. That's why I think marketing should have more permission to ask difficult questions earlier. Not to be obstructive, not to slow businesses down, but rather to make the work more commercially useful. Before we ask how to get attention, we should be asking whether the thing itself deserves it. Before marketing asks people to care, it should ask a harder question. Is this actually worth caring about? Now, that feels like a better standard for the discipline, and a more useful one for the businesses that hire marketers in the first place.